was letting the students blow through it since they use so much gel.
That's not that expensive.
I don't know why they did it, but it's really annoying. It's no good. Alright, so we're gonna start with long prox aorta. Did you go through labeling?
We haven't gone through labeling yet.
Alright, so when you annotate your image, I don't care if it's here or here, it just cannot be here, okay? You're putting the plane that you're imaging it in, which is sagittal or longitudinal, the organ that you're imaging, so we have aorta, and where on that organ that you're taking the picture. Proximate distal, lateral medial, okay? So we're doing sagittal aorta prox or long aorta prox.
In that order too. Like,
Yes.
don't switch them around.
That it needs to be, every time you image from here on out, it's the plane, the organ, and where on the organ. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So when we're talking about the aorta, sits slightly to the left in the body. So I'm gonna come all the way up kind of in her sternum area here. So when we're down here, we can see it, but we're looking at the midsection here. Okay, we wanna start with the prox. So your landmark for prox is going to be, I wrote it down on here. What is it? The opening of the diaphragm and the gastroesophageal junction. Take a deep breath and hold it. Oh, there's your junction right there. Okay, breathe. All right, so this is the left lobe of the liver. This is her heart. This structure right here is what's called the gastroesophageal junction. That's going to tell you that you are in the proximal segment of the aorta. That is that landmark, okay? Deep breath. Your other landmark is the crus of the diaphragm. You can kind of see. I'm going to take a video on this one to fix it. Okay, breathe. When you figure out how to take a video, this one's a little different. I saw it. There it is. Okay, so this is the wall of the aorta here, right? Hyperechoic, thin area. And here's the posterior wall. It's kind of faint, but do we see this area right here? It's a linear structure that kind of comes down, kind of seems like it comes down in front of or over the aorta. That's called the crus of the diaphragm. That is where the aorta is going to go through her diaphragm and becomes abdominal into the thoracic. So that's where it's going to go up and into the heart. So that crus, that is where it crosses the diaphragm. So that is your other landmark for proximal aorta. Okay? Does everybody see that? And we'll go when we start scanning, I'll show you guys, you know, as y'all are scanning each other. But that's going to be a landmark there for you. Deep breath and hold it. When you're doing this too, make sure you're applying a little bit of pressure so you can kind of get that gas out of the way. And what I want to do is get it perpendicular on my screen. So I want to make sure that it's going straight across. Breathe. I have a short proximal aorta. So, do we know what these are? Coming off. And?
Something.
Don't look at me on
Oh,
that.
you were supposed to get back to me on
Yeah,
that.
okay, get back to you on
Okay.
that one.
So these structures that are going to come off here tell you that that's the mid. We'll get to that whenever we get to the midsection. So everything from what? Very good. So from here up is prox. So we're representing that segment. So I need that to be the focus of your image. See how it's right in the center of my screen? So now we're going to optimize my image. I need to make that aorta look like what it's supposed to look like. I talked to a couple of y'all about this earlier, about doing that gradual curve on your TGCs. We don't want to cook our liver and make it look burnt. See there? So now I've made this look like the structure that it is. It's anechoic, it's filled with blood, there's no thrombus, there's no plaque, so I need to make it look like that. I can clearly see these walls for a measurement, and it's going straight across my screen. Okay, so this is a proximal aorta picture. When we do, have we talked about measurements?
Not yet.
Not yet.
We can go ahead. We can talk about all of that.
So when we talk about doing a measurement on something, when we're measuring the aorta, we're measuring outer wall to outer wall. Okay, so the outside of that hyperechoic line to the outside of the posterior hyperechoic line. I did not tell you to do that. So we're talking about putting it here on the outside of that line, going straight down. AP is called anterior posterior measurement. AP measurement means you're measuring from the anterior to the posterior, and to get an accurate measurement, you need it perpendicular on your screen. We'll talk about this when we get to kidneys and stuff too. So I'm measuring from the outer wall to the outer wall, directly down, because my aorta is directly across. If my aorta was at an angle, I have to measure to the angle of that aorta to get the AP measurement on that structure. So you're not going to measure this way and this way if it's coming up across your screen like that. Does that make sense to everybody? Okay. So this is going to be your image. You'll take it without the measurements and with the measurements. Okay. Then we're going to do deep breath and hold it. I'm so sorry. Breathe. So now it's at an angle. Does everybody see the difference?
Yes.
Okay. So when I do this measurement, I'm not going to measure like that because that's not accurate, right? I'm not getting the diameter. I need to do it like that. So if you absolutely had to take it and this was the only thing you could get, that's how you would measure it. Okay? All right, so our landmarks for the mid, you guys said it a minute ago. The CT, SMA, but above the renal arteries. Deep breath. So now I'm trying to get lengthened out, perpendicular, where I can see those structures. Breathe. A little bit of a tilt, but for the sake of argument, I'll leave it. Okay, so this is going to be your mid. Prox is here, mid is here. Distal to the junction. Same thing, you're going to measure outer wall to outer wall, just like that.
Okay. Make sure that you measure inferior to that SMA. You don't want to measure at the branches.
No, you don't measure here or here or here. You measure past, like she said, that SMA. So, and I'll see if we can see renal arteries on some of you guys and show you guys the renal arteries. Okay, and so it goes into the distal. So you're following it as you're going down. Now we're going to be going towards the distal. The distal is going to taper. That's the thing too. You have to pay attention to your measurements because the aorta is supposed to taper in diameter from proximal to distal. So that the prox should be the widest and the distal it should be the narrowest, and there should be no areas of dilation in between where it's larger than the previous measurement. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. Okay, so if it's 3, 2, 1, but between 2 and 1 you get another 3, that's an aneurysm. So we want to make sure that that measurement is tapering down.
And then notice how you get more distal, that aorta gets a little more superficial. So then we got to remember to change our image optimization, decrease your depth, change your focus, all that kind of stuff.
Kind of see your cruise as you're breathing. So like, yeah, that's prox, but if I come all the way down to the distal, do you see how far away it looks on the screen? So you'll hear me say a lot of times too, it's so far away. Why is the kidney so far away? I need you to decrease your depth, is what that means. So distal aorta, same thing. It's going to have a taper here because this is where it bifurcates into the iliacs. I really don't need her to take a deep breath for this one. I'm just timing it with the beats to make sure the image is clear. So that's another thing too. Things are going to be moving in there that you can't control them stopping. Your patients aren't necessarily going to be able to hold their breath for a long time, if at all, because they're not conscious sometimes. So use your cine to go back to the clear picture. I won't choose this image, so I'm going to cine and find my clear image. Does everybody see that? So as it's moving, it's kind of blurry. I don't want it blurry. I want it nice and crisp and clear so I can measure those walls. So I'm just going to cine it back just a little bit so that I can get it nice and crisp. Okay? When you start to do the left lobe of the liver, you'll see that too because it's right next to the heart, and the heart is making all that motion. Even with them holding their breath, it's going to cause motion. So you freeze it and then you just scooch it on back a little bit so that you can get a nice and crisp image. Okay? Same thing here, we're gonna measure outer to outer. Okay? And now we can see where it's tapering down. So when we talk about doing the transverse aorta, is that what's next, or did I go into bifurcations? Either way, we'll just keep rolling. So now that I'm in the distal, if I want the aortic bifurcation, I'm not necessarily going to have to slide on her. I can, it's nice and easy, but try and do an angle if you need to. If you have to angle around some gas or angle around a belly button. You see how I can still get it even though I'm coming from different directions? I want it centered on your screen and optimize sector width. Boo. Okay, I don't have sector width on this one, so I'll just zoom it in. So, see how I'm kind of making it the focus, bringing it in nice and close. I want to make sure it's very clear what I'm taking a picture of. It's in the center of my image. We got both of those bifurcations right there. Nice and round. And then, talk about turning on it. You guys already did turning on LAX.
Yeah, we're working on it.
Okay. So when you come down into the iliac, pick which one you're going to start with. I'll start with her left one. I'm going to move over so that it's in the center of my screen, and I'm going to turn, just like that, and lengthen it out. Okay? I have to come like this and straighten it out so I can get that measurement on it. Okay? And we'll show you all those motions when we do this. So you noticed me do what? Go from here, around, turn, and now I need to heel toe it. So from where I started to how I ended up taking that picture, watch here and make it happen here, okay? But make sure we're doing it to where it looks like it's supposed to look. So that heel toe action and the angling, you guys all been gone over that? Yeah? So it's not about necessarily going like this to try and find her iliac, but here and just moving around and how I need to make the image, okay? So those are the iliacs. And prox transverse. That one's a little tricky, actually. So for the prox transverse aorta, you can see it here on my screen, but it's not very clear. I need to be able to see those walls for measurements. Take a deep breath and hold it. So when she takes a deep breath, see here? And now I brought it nice and crisp and clear. Breathe. And I'm going to optimize my focal zones down. If I could zoom in a little bit. Do y'all see that? So this is all lever here. What I don't see is the SMA because that is the mid landmark. Did you just get like super gassy all of a sudden?
I told you I felt like I was today.
Because I can't see your mid anymore. Oh no. And this is a lesson in moving quickly because you never know when things can change.
And y'all will notice from taking in deep breaths,
Also,
like by
yes.
your second hour, you're gonna
Be a little bit more
be
gassy.
gassier.
Yeah. So I'm going to show you her SMA landmark. There it is. Okay. There's the trunk. Okay, breathe. All right, so here is for mid, the celiac trunk. See it here, that seagull sign? It's gonna come off the anterior part here, and it's gonna like branch off like that and look like a little seagull. That's gonna tell you you're in your mid. Sorry, go ahead.
Haley has really good anatomy.
Yes.
That's Haley
Sorry. I was like, okay. Excellent. So we'll look at those and I'll start scanning. So this is your landmark for mid. So if you see this, you've come too far. So you need to go back up. Your proximal should have a lot of liver in it. Okay? And deep breath. Ooh, your trunk is pretty. See it? It looks like a seagull. And the SMA is going to be right here. Good. Breathe. Kind of right here. It's getting a little gassy, so it's getting harder to see. So that's your other little landmark. It tells you you're in mid. So your transverse images, I think we have you take ones where you show both the SMA and the celiac trunk. I think. Maybe that's extra credit.
I know they're extra credit, I don't know.
Oh, I think it's just, yeah, it might be extra credit. Well, now you know. That's what that's going to be. It's showing me the celiac trunk and the SMA. And then once we get to the distal, to know that you're distal, I would just prefer you come to that bifurcation and then go up a little bit, and that tells me that you're in distal aorta. Okay? That's it. That's just a rundown of your protocol real fast. Oh, the IVC.
Questions, comments, concerns?
Is anybody, has anybody confused about anything I said, a term I used, something I did with the machine that you're